we don't think that it's going to be banned. We do think that every single athlete, that's not an exaggeration, we think that every single athlete will have to incorporate this as much as they incorporate sugar right now into their diet. It's just a second, completely different pathway fuel source to glucose. So you could run just on glucose, or you can run on glucose and ketones on top of that.
Hey, fitness fans, welcome back to the Future of Fitness podcast and interview series. This is your host, Eric Malzone, and this is episode number 124. I talked to Frank Lomas. He is a founder at KetoneAid.com. So for all intents and purposes, this is the Exogenous Ketone episode. So I'd like to give a shout out to Kate Jaramillo and her podcast, the Straight Up Wellness podcast. And she referred Frank to me. She also has an interview with him on her show, so you can check that out. But it was a great connection because I did want to talk about this a little bit more. And there's a lot of information, a lot of misinformation out there about exogenous ketones, ketone salts versus ketone esters. We actually talk about that in this interview. Now, Frank sent me some of the product to test before we got together and did this show. And I did feel a difference. Yeah, I mean, I didn't use a lot of it. I'm not in ketosis. I am a lower carb guy. But before my workouts, I felt a nice sustained level of energy. I didn't feel that shaky, like caffeine feeling that sometimes when I run myself with caffeine. Also during days of high productivity at my desk, doing content, working with clients, I tried it then. It felt good as well. So there's something to it. I can't explain the science, but that's why I brought Frank on. So we're going to talk all about it. And before we get into the interview, I would like to read a review from Chuck. So Chuck says, Eric is a highly informed, passionate, and presents well on a variety of fitness topics. I enjoy the variety of guests and believe his interviewing style lends itself to an entertaining and educational conversations. I highly recommend. Thank you, Chuck. Very appreciated. And if you haven't gone over to iTunes to subscribe or wherever you listen to this podcast, please do so. And then leave me a nice review like this on iTunes, and I will read it on air. You have my word. It goes a long way. Really helps my show as it grows and allows us to get even more great guests like Frank and the people we've had on so far. So one more thing. I like to talk about CertifiedCourseCreation.com. So I am part of this organization now, and I am really excited to be doing it because we are truly helping fitness professionals take the next step, fitness and health and wellness professionals take the next step in their career, right? If you have a specialty, if you have a deep knowledge of a specific area, it could be your opportunity to do something very, very big. And what I love about being part of this organization is that we help dreams come true. We help people realize bigger things and develop the online courses and certifications that help them take that next step, become an expert in their particular niche, and make a ton of money doing it. And it's awesome. So go to CertifiedCourseCreation.com, check it out. You can book a time with me if you'd like. And if you want to just, talk about your idea, see if the concept has legs, I'm happy to do that. I've interviewed over 500 people in the last year and a half within this industry. And I can probably with strong certainty tell you if it's a good idea, or if somebody else has done it, or, maybe you should take a step back and revamp it a little bit more. So go do it. Go check it out. Just don't wait. There's no point. If you keep waiting, then tomorrow will never come and you won't have this opportunity to do it now. So today is the best day. Go to CertifiedCourseCreation.com and check it out. And now, without further ado, episode number 124 with Frank Lomas of KetoneAid.com. Enjoy the show. All right. And we're live. Frank, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So this is the official, unofficial exogenous ketone episode here. And we'll be diving deep into some of this. And, you would have been nice enough to send me some samples of what you guys have. So I've been playing around with it the last week or so. But let's do this, man. Give us your story. Give us a little background on who you are.
Sure. So my name is Frank Losa. I'm the CEO of KetoneAid. I started this about 3 years ago. And the way that I got into it was my wife's godfather is Dr. Richard Veach. And he's the one that his name is on every single important paper relating to ketones, well, maybe not every single paper, but the most influential person in the ketone space. And he works in NIH for the last 40 years. He used to work under Hans Krebs. And, I've been married to my wife for maybe 12 years, but didn't really know much about what he did. I started hearing rumblings about how he should be given gold medals for, performances in the Olympics and stuff because of, this drink that he made. And one day my friend wrote a blog post about taking a deep dive, going down the rabbit hole on a ketogenic diet, a high fat, low protein, low carb diet. So I started learning about ketones, and then I met up with Dr. Veach at a 80th birthday party and started talking to him about ketones. And usually he's pretty exhausted in the sense that he doesn't want to talk to people from scratch of what are ketones, because it becomes a 2-hour, podcast, right? So normally talk about it, but then I was actually able to converse with them because I had done, 10 hours of studying beforehand. And that's where it started. And now it's, 3 years later, we're finally selling the product. And, it's been a crazy ride. It's been highly successful. We're selling every single drop that we can make. We can't make enough of it.
Wow. So, for our listeners, right? If they've been living in a bubble, they don't know what ketosis is, especially in the fitness industry, right? Fitness and nutrition. Let's just give from a 30,000 foot view, what is ketosis? What does a ketogenic diet look like? And how does that start to affect your physiology from a very high level, right?
Right.
And then we'll get into nitty gritty.
So the ketogenic diet is similar to the Atkins diet, but the difference is Atkins tends to be higher in protein. So when you lower the protein and you make it approximately 75 or 80% fat, which for some people, that's just, ungodly and unheard of. But yes, that's what people do. 15% protein and 5% carbs. The number one mistake people make is they actually take on too much protein, and the protein actually converts into carbs. And when you do this diet, your body goes into this emergency state. Some people might say, oh, that's unhealthy, but the body's actually designed to do this. It's kind of like a hibernating bear. Your body's designed to go into the state of ketosis, which burns your fat reserves and uses that burned fuel is called beta hydroxybutyrate. It's a ketone. So you burn fat to make ketones to run your body. And if you go on Instagram, you'll see hundreds and thousands of people that are losing 50 and 100 pounds on this diet. Even though mainstream, rank the best top 10 diets, they still might rank, the ketogenic diet as number 10. The results are out there, everywhere. So what this ketosis is defined two different ways. One is when your body is burning fat and making ketones. That's how I define it. It's endogenous. Your body's making ketones. But some people incorrectly define ketosis as you prick your finger to test your blood, and there are these meters that will tell you how many ketones are actually running through through the blood. Some people define that as ketosis. I define that as exogenous ketosis. If you just drank a drink and the ketones are now flowing through your blood, that's exogenous ketosis. Your body didn't make it. The drink made it. And it's an important distinction because some people will confuse the two concepts and think that they just drank this drink, test their blood, and then suddenly magically they're sitting on the couch and they're just burning fat. And it's just not true. And there's a lot of companies that are marketing that misleading message, and people think they can just drink their way into a diet. You still have to eat healthy. This doesn't just negate McDonald's. This isn't, you see people at McDonald's drinking a Diet Coke and they're eating, crazy amount of food, and somehow they think that Diet Coke is helping the equation.
Yeah.
It's not like you can have a ketone ester drink during that McDonald's food and somehow think that's going to, negate the garbage that you just ate.
Yeah. Well, if you're telling me this is not a magic pill, Frank, then we should probably stop the interview right here because, I think that's what everyone wants.
Manage expectations. Yes, everyone wants something super, super simple. And this is simple, but it's,
Well, there has to be work. I've had two, personal experience with ketogenic diet and ketosis. One was for my own personal health reasons because I had some gut issues, and I had after testing, it was like I had a big candida overgrowth, and candida is, naturally occurs in the gut, but it can be, it's a gut bacteria that can overgrow and then feeds off sugars. So I had to completely cut down sugars and kind of starve this thing until I got better. So I use that for health reasons. It worked. Right. I felt better. It took about 2.5 months really to kind of get back to full health. And so I know from, that standpoint of a healthy, versus going on a bunch of medications and all that stuff, I could have done a full blown, like strong antibiotic assault on my system, but I know what that does overall over time, right? Really messes you up. The other thing is my wife. So my wife started, January 1st, as many do, right? She started a ketogenic diet. And, what I've seen from her, and I kind of call it, I'm kind of ketoing. I still have, a cocktail every once in a while, but I do it to support her, right? And I've noticed.
Cocktail to support her?
No, well, I do everything else but the cocktail to support her. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I do the cocktail to support me. But what she did over, a 5-week span, she completely changed her diet and went full on, ketosis, and she saw great results. I mean, I think she's back wearing, number one, she's sleeping way better. It used to be really hard for her to wake up, right? And now she kind of springs out of bed sometimes before me, which is shocking. She doesn't have the swings of energy and mood throughout the day that she did at one time, right? And she's, wearing, she'd probably kill me for saying this, but she's back wearing pants that she hasn't worn in like 10 years, right?
Wow.
And she's really excited about it, and she loves it. And now she's kind of adapted it more into a sustainable lifestyle as she moves forward. So, there's two anecdotal cases for me saying that, we're definitely onto something here, right? For sure.
I've been doing it now for 2.5, 3 years, and mine is a vegan keto diet.
Oh, wow.
Make it another level more difficult. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you should have your wife try some of the ester, because if she's already keto, take even far less, and it has a much more profound effect, even though the drink was designed for non-keto people.
Yeah.
But I can go into the general category of what, this exogenous ketones, what that means.
Please.
Break down, what's within there.
Please.
So the general category is called exogenous ketones. Exogenous means taken outside of the body, and you're drinking ketones.
Right.
However, what's commonly available on the market, and the sticker price is a lot less expensive, even though we'll talk in a second about, pricing for value of what you get, is something on the market called ketone salts. And the way that it works is when your body makes this emergency fuel source, beta hydroxybutyrate, BHB, it is technically in an acidic form. So this molecule, BHB, is acidic. So there's two solutions to making it non-acidic so that it's, palatable. One solution is to add a base, or some people might say a salt, to that. So potassium, magnesium, calcium, sodium. People think that sodium is the only salt out there, but there's actually 4. And don't be confused by that, because sometimes some companies will hide the magnesium and calcium in the fine print, even though, it's important to know that you're eating 2 to 4 grams of salt. So the equivalent of 20 to 30 salt pills if you put salt pills in your hand.
Wow.
So the ketone salts are what are readily available. And the amount of ketones that they deliver is extremely small. And the salt actually inhibits the delivery of those ketones. The second problem with the ketone salts is most of them are racemic. And racemic means, if you've ever seen L-tryptophan on the shelves or D-ribose on the shelves, many molecules will have a positive and a negative, like a D form and an L form. And D-ribose happens to be the bioavailable version that the body can use, D-ribose. L-tryptophan, the L form. Well, with the ketones, the D form is the version that the body can use, but it's far less expensive to import from China, the DL form together. The problem with that is twofold. One, the L blocks some of the D even more, so some of the proper form. And also, because the L is also acidic, you have to load up a whole bunch of more sodium and salt on top of that. So the salt load that you get with these drinks can be 3 to 4 grams. And if you want to get your blood ketone levels higher, so if you're testing your blood ketones, if you want to get them up 1 or 2 millimolar, which would be the equivalent of a 4 or 5 day fast, you'd have to take 5 to 10 servings of this stuff, which is like 20 or 30 grams of salt. So just a huge restaurant shaker of salt. It's just not possible. People get, even on one serving, they get bloated. They can't put their rings on and stuff like that. The salt load is massive. And as a side note, when you are entering into a ketogenic diet, you really do need a massive salt load because, as your wife can attest, she lost 5 pounds within 5 days. And people love that. But what it is water weight. The body just is getting rid of the glucose, and glucose holds on to water molecules. So when you get rid of glucose, it flushes your system of water. But with that, you also lose a ton of electrolytes, salt. And if you don't replenish that, you get something called the keto flu. And my wife was in a fetal position in bed crying, "What have you done to me? I'm not your biohacking experiment. Like, I want to go to the hospital." I made a couple calls to experts and I gave her 15 salt pills. And within 15 minutes, she was up and around. So it can be. I heard of another woman, the doctor told her to go keto and didn't give her proper instructions. 2 days later, she's in the hospital and took them 2 hours to figure out what it was. And I told her, "I bet you it was lack of sodium." She's like, "How did you know? It took them 2 hours." I'm like, "Yeah, you went keto and you didn't, replenish. Not just add more salt to your food. No, like massive salt intake." So some people will like the exogenous ketones, the ketone salts. They'll like them when entering into the ketogenic diet to try to get back in. But the benefit is the salt content. So you could actually save a whole bunch of money. Just buy a bunch of salt pills or buy, Himalayan salt, which is mainly, sodium. You need some potassium and some magnesium at nighttime. So that's the ketone salt category. Most of them are racemic. If you're wondering whether it's racemic, it is racemic because it costs 5 times more to make the non-racemic version. So they're going to advertise it as the D form. So look for D. Or sometimes it's also R. For some reason in science, the D is the same as R and the L is the same as S. So you're going to be wanting to look for the D or R form. In the next 6 to 12 months, if people are looking at this podcast later, it's going to be the default on the market, the non-racemic. So the non-racemics are much better because it has half the salt load for the amount of salt, for the amount of ketones delivered. Now, ketone ester, what we have is called D-beta-hydroxybutyrate. So it's non-racemic, the D form. And then it's attached to something called D13-butanediol. So instead of adding a base, we add something called D13-butanediol. This molecule, coincidentally, happens to go through the liver, kind of like MCT oil, goes through the liver and makes another round of ketones, makes beta-hydroxybutyrate. So you have when it gets into the gut, it splits apart. So you have a fast release, the beta-hydroxybutyrate side, and then a slow release, the D13-butanediol side. So similar to MCT oil, don't mix MCT oil with ketone ester, no matter what you hear in any other podcast. Or go ahead and do it, and then, post on my message board that I was right. That it will multiply the pains that people feel when they eat the super strong C8, like the brain octane. The C8 does not mix with the ketone ester because they both go through the same pathway. They're competing to get processed, through the liver. So don't mix those. You can mix the ketone salts and the ketone ester, which is our next drink coming up called ketone water. But back to the ketone ester. So ketone ester also, there will be other ketone esters that are coming on the market in the next 5 years. The word ketone ester is a vague term for something that is a ketone, which technically there's 3: acetone, nail polish, acetoacetate, and beta-hydroxybutyrate. So you can have an ketone ester by having any one of these 3, and then the word ester means a combination of 2 molecules. So there is one other ester, ketone ester out there, which isn't commercially available as of today, but it's called acetoacetate, so the second ketone, and racemic 1,3-butanediol. So some, Russian trollers out there that are anti, exogenous ketones will list 8 different studies that have, shown various degrees of success or failure and say, look, exogenous ketone research is still up in the air. Well, if you look at them one by one, many of them are the racemic salts. And what happened? They didn't work. One of them is the headline, ketone ester impairs human performance. Well, that's no good. But when you actually go to the paper, that is the acetoacetate and racemic 1,3-butanediol. So you have 2 problems. Acetoacetate has a fraction of the energy that beta-hydroxybutyrate has, just how it works in the Krebs cycle. One has just more ATP. And on the 1,3-butanediol side, half of it is racemic. So the part that your body can't use, the L, is blocking the D. So it's just not as effective. Now, not as effective for sports performance. So Dom D'Agostino has been doing a lot of research with this ester on deep sea divers and NASA and helping people with seizures. Well, this molecule might work better in that instance, because one theory is that it actually slows down the body. And that's what you want when you have a seizure. You don't want, more energy. You want to slow down the body, and how it takes in oxygen is different. So your breath hold, I went from testing my baseline of 60-second breath hold. I took the esters expecting to double it because that's what I heard on a Dom podcast. And it went to, 35, 40. And the theory there is just the way that it uses oxygen is different. So it impaired performance in that study. But if you look at the paper, they were only able to raise blood ketone levels of beta hydroxybutyrate. They were only able to raise it 0.2. So we've got elite performers that are going. And by the way, if you wake up in the morning, some people will have, even non-keto people will wake up with 0.1, 0.2, because overnight you've fasted and your body's just starting to make, some ketones. Or a ketogenic diet person might wake up with a 1.0, and we'll have athletes jump all the way to 5 and 6.0 on the ester. And this study, they went from 0.1 to 0.3, and then suddenly they're like, ketone ester doesn't work. So you have to understand that the different types that are out there, and don't be confused.
Okay, so now I'm going to come in with my questions as if I'm a fifth grader, right? So, because in some ways,
my fourth grade, my son, he's homeschooled, but he's probably like second, third grade. He could probably explain this to you. I should almost get him on, because he's sometimes, Daddy, if I get lightheaded or something, maybe you took too many ketones.
Yeah.
How do you know that?
So, who are exogenous ketones for, right? Because I think, obviously, it's rocket fuel for people who are already in ketosis, right? But what about someone like let's use me, right? Because I'm the great test example, because I've been trying it. I would say on average on most days, I consume under 100 grams of carbohydrates. So I'm probably not fully ketosis, but I'm considered low carb, right?
Oh, yeah.
By most standards, right? And I felt, during my time, like I've taken it twice right before training. I took it before I went to sleep last night, and admittedly I took too much, but I didn't actually read. I kind of read your instructions, but I kind of didn't, with stuff that drives my wife crazy. So yeah, and I felt a big boost of energy, sustained energy as well during my training sessions. So it was great. So
how did you feel after the training session and towards the end? Are you normally zonked? Did you notice a difference?
Yeah, I would say I am. I just don't train. I also don't train as intensely as I used to, because I just don't need to. But yeah, I felt fine. I really felt fine. I felt like I came back home. I completed some more work. Usually I'm just kind of like, I just want to sit down on the couch for a little bit and read a book. But I felt great. And so, if someone's not at least monitoring their carbs, right, or they're still, highly carb adapted or whatever you want to call it, is it worth their time, or do you have to put in some work ahead?
So this drink was initially designed with a DARPA grant for military use. And these military soldiers are not keto. So it's actually designed for non-keto people as a second fuel source. So you're already being fueled by carbs. Let's just add ketones in as well. It happens to be that 80% of our clientele are people that are already keto, in either low carb or keto. Why? Because they've already taken the 7-hour deep dive and know what ketones are. But if you go to a carb-based person and start talking about ketones, it's like, go study it for 8 hours and come back. Like a little clip like this isn't going to be enough for them. So it's designed for non-keto people. But the lower carb you are, the more the fuel will work. So you can actually use less. So we have people using $2.50 worth on a daily basis pre-workout, because these keto people, they go into the workouts completely fasted. They have no fuel. They might squirt on some MCT oil, or you might have, and if you're low carb, you probably also go into your workout fasted. You have no fuel source. Meanwhile, these glucose-based people are chugging pre-workout drinks that are all sugar-based. So they're running on sugar as opposed to just muscling through the workouts. So you just sprinkle a little bit of exogenous ketones in these, keto people, and they're shooting the moon. We've had ninja warriors double their hang, how long they can hold on a bar, go from 4 minutes to 9 minutes. The guy had to stop because his skin was peeling off of his hands. So it's just more massive of an improvement. And I think that's where the sport is actually going to be heading. They're going to find that when you combine the two, keto, and now the keto has a fuel, it's going to be even more impactful than the regular people, with the two fuel sources. That's where I think it's actually going, because the keto world, they're all talking about, we can get you back to baseline on keto. Well, I don't want baseline. I want an improvement. Well, this ketogenic diet will get athletes eventually after a few months back to baseline, but then now the ester, they actually have a fuel source and they can take off. But again, it's designed for non-keto athletes. And when you can do two different ways. You can take it two different ways. You can take a small amount, 10 to 15 mLs, which is $5 to $7 worth pre-workout. But sometimes the non-keto people will need a little bit more. But when you want to do a full out sports performance, that was a fourth of a serving, by the way. If you do a full serving or even 2 servings of the ester, it drops your blood sugar so much that you actually have to carb up first. So you have to take a couple shots of, gel shots, have your blood glucose raise, and then you take the ketone ester, brings it down, and then you're humming, with the 2 fuel sources together.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, we're playing with a pretty complicated mechanism here, right? Of how our body produces energy, and the various fuel sources. What are the cautionary pieces that you tell people before they start trying out exogenous ketones or even just getting into ketosis?
Yeah, sure. So, with the exogenous ketones, more is not necessarily better, is what we're finding. And if you take too much, first of all, never take it on game day the first time. Take it at least 2 times beforehand. We had one guy, a triathlete, lose $10,000 because he wanted to take it on game day. Because when this stuff works, it works. When it doesn't work, it doesn't work. This guy took it with a slightly different protocol. His blood sugar dropped so fast that he had to pull out of the race. Like he was in the 50s, 60s, and his legs felt completely flat, completely dead. It just doesn't work. So you really need to test out your body. Everyone has different levels of sensitivity. Sometimes I'll be working with a professional athlete, an MMA fighter, Matt Brown. The first 3 times I was changing the protocol and said, no, I didn't feel that. No, I didn't feel that. I'm like, okay, let's try it again. Thanks for being patient. The 4th time he called me, Frank, all those things you talked to me about? Slow motion, like being able to remember moves from high school. He was flattening all of his sparring partners and no one knew what he was doing. And they're all just, jaw on the ground, like what happened to him? So it can take a while and everyone has different levels of sensitivity, just like glucose. Some people, a small amount of glucose can, make them crazy. Whereas other people might be able to, suck on 2 or 3 gel packs. So as far as cautionary, if you take too much, it'll drop your blood sugar too much, can make you lightheaded, can also make you hungry. There's a couple podcasts out there where people took, 4 times too much and their ketones skyrocketed through the roof, but they weren't able to do as many push-ups as yesterday, which isn't very scientific, but they felt hungry and a little bit lightheaded. So that's the drawback of taking too much of it, which isn't an issue with the salts because you can't take, unless you took 10, packets of the racemic salts, you can't get to that ketone level where your blood sugar is an issue. As far as issues with, taking the ketogenic diet, 1 out of 20 people will get what's called a keto rash. My wife got that, of course. And she just got a whole bunch of rash here. And for like,
poor wife,
7 days of nonstop scratching. So with her, she has to make sure she doesn't get too keto. She's got to stay in a certain range of 0.5 to 1.0. And if she goes to 1.5 or 2.0 on the diet alone, not the drink, on the diet alone, you can get the keto flu. And then we talked previously about the keto rash. We talked previously about the keto flu, which almost everyone will get. And it almost indefinitely is a lack of salt. A little bit of it is a lack of ketones because the glucose has gone down, so your brain isn't being fueled and the ketones haven't gone up. So one way around that is to tear off the Band-Aid and try to do a 24 or 48 hour fast with salt. And by doing that quick fast, you can actually get your ketones high enough to fuel your brain as opposed to this 7-day slow transition into ketones where your glucose is down, your ketones aren't high enough, and your brain just isn't fueled yet.
Yeah. So, I've heard a lot of conflicting points of view. I mean, there's just going to be a ton, right? Anytime you get nutrition, right? Opinions floating around, it's just, it's
diet.
Yeah, the carnivore diet. It's just still funny to me is like we've made all this progress scientifically as a species, yet our basic nutrition is so misunderstood and so confounded and confusing to so many people because there's so many different ways to make a point, right? I mean, someone could right now pull up like 10 studies that verify everything you're saying. They could pull up 10 that say that everything is total BS, right? And so when you're talking about ketosis and therefore exogenous ketones, is it a lifestyle that's permanent? Do you suggest that people kind of go in and out of cycles? Or is this something that they just kind of produce as a lifestyle and that's it? This is the way you're going to be,
I've heard of the concept of cycling into ketosis. There's two different ways. People do it sometimes every week, like literally after day 7, they load up on carbs and they go keto again. And all that's just doesn't work because the whole point is that you have a glycogen storage, glucose storage in your system. And it takes you 7 days, unless you're working out, to deplete that storage. And the moment that you deplete it, that's when the ketones start to kick in. So some people after day 7, they feel groggy. Well, now it's just starting to work. And what do? They hit back some carbs and they do it all over again. So that system I don't agree with. But there are people that will do a 3 to 4 months on keto and then a couple weeks off of keto. I'm sure there's some science behind that. It's just not my thing. I just feel like garbage when I eat carbs. So I just don't want to do it. So yeah, I've been 2 to 3 years straight keto, without having to go into the carb world again.
Why did you do it? Did you have health issues? Did you just not feel good? What was your motivation?
Well, first of all, I needed to understand ketones. So I wanted to, really see with the diet. And this is when the drink used to cost us $500 a serving. So I only took it twice over a 1-year period when I was giving it out to professional athletes. I wouldn't even drink it myself because why waste it on me when I've got, a couple of professional athletes willing to take it and do a testimonial for no pay. So I was doing more of the diet and I could hit 8.0 on a keto vegan diet, which is the maximum that the meter can do. The meter actually says high after, 8.0 is very polite. So I was testing that out, but I lost 40 pounds without even trying. I was 180, but I had back pain and I was just losing weight and just not hungry. Like the ketones, your body burns fat and that energy, satiates you, makes you not hungry. If you start eating food, it makes you full faster. Some people incorrectly think that the ketogenic diet is an all you can eat, whatever you want. As long as it's fat, you'll lose weight. That's actually not true. You can gain weight on a ketogenic diet, but the idea is you're supposed to be less hungry and stop eating, halfway through the plate. Don't be in the clean plate club if you're trying to lose weight. Think of it as every dollar of food that you're scraping into the trash can is $1 less to the doctor or copay or whatever. So it's a good thing to throw away food or serve less, but you don't have to clean that plate up. So I was just doing it for that. And I got down from, it was 180, it was down to like 143. And people were saying, the color of your skin is odd. You look a little green. And I was like, I feel, they felt like I came out of a cancer ward, but I was like, I feel great. I have no back pain. My energy is great. I used to fall asleep, reading to the kids at 7 p.m. Little, Ducky walks through the park, and the kids are like hitting me to wake up. And then suddenly my back pain's gone and I'm able to read the books and keep energy throughout the day. So it just worked for me. And, if you're carb fueled and you don't have any issues, then fine. And I think that you could probably, eating ketogenic diet is not necessarily synonymous with healthy. You can do a ketogenic diet unhealthily. This whole like bacon phenomenon, I know one elite athlete eats bacon and eggs and coconut oil. That's it. I don't think that's healthy. And it's not just my vegan bias, just this deep fried, meat is just not healthy. So you could be healthy doing a raw vegan with fruit diet if you wanted to, and probably have, great results. But for me, the carbs just make me crash, make me fall asleep and, all that stuff. And one tip with the ketogenic diet, the fruit is the enemy. Like that's the number one thing that I fight with people over. They say, oh, but fruit's okay, right? Like somehow the body doesn't know the difference between a candy bar and a grape or a pineapple when it tests your blood glucose. Your blood glucose still skyrockets. So, fruit is the devil, especially for people in a ketogenic diet. And it's very hard for people to get over that. They say, well, what about the antioxidants and all the other benefits? And I say, if I told you that cocaine had vitamin C, are you going to be like, somehow cocaine is healthy? No, like sure, there's antioxidants, but it's 2 steps forward and 3 steps back with all the sugar that's in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there, over my years of experience, I believe there's 2 things that are true no matter what you come from. And ultimately it comes down to trying it and see if it works for you. Right. I think that's the big thing is like, whatever, if people personally, like I've seen benefits, my wife sees benefits, obviously you've seen benefits of, a ketogenic lifestyle, then maybe it's enough cause for someone to go out and actually try it. Right. But there are 2 things over my years of experience that seem to ring true is that, if you want to lose weight, or even just for general health reasons, unless you're a performance athlete, a slight deficit of calories goes a long way, right? Over a period of time. The other thing is
like 100 calories less per day is very cumulative. Yeah,
it goes a long way for all type of health markers, not just your waistline. And the other thing is fasting. If people just implemented some periodic fasting in their lives, I mean, you can name all of them, right? Ketogenic, paleo, vegan, low carb, high carb, all of these. No one can really argue with the value of fasting, right? Whether it be intermittent or any scale of that. And I feel like ketogenic seems to go the best, complement the most with intermittent fasting or fasting in general. Would you say?
You mentioned fasting and caloric restriction. There was a paper that Dr. Beach did in 2017 where he analyzed all of these papers on all these animals talking about, either fasting or caloric restriction and how all the animals live longer. And they all had like 7 different theories for why they live longer. And Dr. Beach's paper basically says, it's the ketones, stupid. And left off the stupid part, but he goes into, they gave exogenous ketones to the C. elegans and they went, they were longer and lived longer. And his theory is that the same longevity principles that happen with caloric restriction and fasting will happen with the exogenous ketones. But you mentioned weight loss. So real quickly, most of the exogenous ketones that are out there are sold for weight loss.
Right.
The ketone salts mainly. That's their number one pitch. And I've been saying for 3 years, what they market is a ketogenic diet plus ketone salts helps you lose weight. And I've said a ketogenic diet plus clapping your hands helps you lose weight. It's the ketogenic diet. Now, sure, the exogenous ketone salts might help you, like I said before, the first 2 weeks help you get into the zone because of the salt load. And some people have used the ketone ester for weight loss, but my wife says I cannot sell this as a weight loss drink until she loses weight on it. Yeah. But the reason that it doesn't work for some people is when she drinks it, she'll be eating keto and she'll drink the ester, and then suddenly she eats worse because she feels justified. Oh, I've got ketones, I've got high ketones in my blood, so I'll add that extra whatever. She'll kill me if I say ice cream, but or even low carb ice cream, just adding more calories because you think that this is some magical eraser. But we have had people that actually did not want to lose weight, which is a great, test subject, and they had to stop taking the ester because they lost too much weight. So for whatever that's worth. But, I've gotten emails, someone saying, hey, I took this exogenous ketone and then I ate pasta that night. And then the next morning I woke up, 2 pounds heavier. And I was like, there's so many problems with that statement. I can't even begin. Like, I would not recommend you buying, our drink, but there are people that are using it for weight loss to enter into the ketogenic diet. So when the glucose goes down and the ketones aren't high enough yet, it'll replenish the glucose and replenish the ketones so it reaches your brain. But there is no magic pill, but used alongside a good diet, it can be complementary to it. It can help alleviate your carb addictions and help it make you so you're more full. I gave it once before a triathlon. Gave it once to an athlete before a triathlon, and I walked up to him at the buffet afterward, and I said, hey, you're in line because the food is amazing and free, but let me ask you a question. Are you hungry? And he looks at me and he goes, oh my God, I've been doing triathlons for 10 years and I'm always ravished after a triathlon. Yeah. I'm not hungry at all.
Yeah.
Yet he proceeded to, load up on food because it was free. By the way, that guy flew 12 to 15 hours across the world and reported back to me that he had no jet lag. Wow. And we've actually had multiple accounts of people reporting reduced jet lag. Other things that it does is actually for sleep. You took 10 mLs before bed, but if you take 5 mLs, some people 10, but start with 5. People are recording 1 hour longer deep sleep in their, using their Aura rings, they're able to track, deep sleep. So other people use it for recovery after their workouts. So keto.neo on Instagram, he admits to previously having used steroids. And he says that this is more impactful than steroids. And he's able to do a hard workout, take it afterward, and be smart during the workday, so not zonked. Because you're talking about normally you'd read a book on the couch, but you actually felt motivated to get stuff done. Like, that's not a coincidence. That's an actual thing. And then he would be able to have his second workout. If he didn't take the ester, he starts his second workout and he's just zonked, and he can't work out twice a day. So what does that do for long-term performance? Taking it so that you can do a workout twice a day. And you're talking also about lifestyle. The exogenous ketone can be taken every day. It's not one of those things that stop working, like my favorite supplement, Huperzine A, which I love it for brain and crazy lucid dreams. It only works 2 or 3 days in a row. Caffeine. I'm anti-caffeine because...
What was that one again, Frank?
Huperzine A. I'm dropping little nuggets. Huperzine A is, you want to have crazy dreams like wolves chasing you and you're Batman or flying around. Huperzine A. I learned that from Tim Ferriss, Lucid.
How do you spell it?
Huperzine, Huperzine A. I take 400 milligrams, which is 2 tablets of 200. It can upset your stomach, so start with 200.
Okay.
But I have had a few people take that, and on day 4, they're like, it stopped working. My adventures went away. I'm like, yeah, it's, certain things stop working after a few days.
Yeah.
So caffeine, I'm anti-caffeine because people have been drinking caffeine for 20 years. Why? Because it worked the first 2 weeks that they took it, but then it stopped working. And all it does is start you off at a deficit and hopefully, bring you back. And people have actually used the ester to actually kick their caffeine addiction. They don't get the withdrawals. They don't get the shakes. They don't get the grogginess that normally will take 40 days to get out of your system. By the way, you can combine exogenous ketones and caffeine, but there are some problems with that. You were asking about problems. It will multiply the effect of caffeine. So some people that feel no caffeine can suddenly, their brain turns on right away. And I say, hey, that's not I'd love to take credit for that being the ester. Well, that's the caffeine. The ester was like a delivery mechanism for the caffeine. And if you do feel caffeine and you take it with the ester and you feel jitters, that again is the caffeine, not the ester. The ester is actually supposed to be more of a anti-anxiety calming effect, which is a strange energy that maybe you can attest to. People are used to or expecting a jittery energy, but the opposite happens. It's a calm energy, kind of like a ninja. Ninja will be super calm, but then ready to explode. So watch out with the caffeine, combinations.
Yeah, good to know. Good to know. So, here's a product, right? KetoneAid. So let's talk about this a little bit. And I like, you're very honest. Yeah, I was gonna say you're very honest with it. Like, it does taste like shit. It really does. It was shocking at first.
Well, it's all relative, so you have to watch out. If you're expecting OJ, it'll be horrible. But if I sent you the raw sample, which Ali Spignola, a comedian, I sent her some raw, and she drank the regular drink that you had. She's like, "Oh, that's bad." And then she goes, "If that's not bad enough, how about this sample?"
Yeah, I bet. Oh God,
it was just dry heaving, your vomiting. So if you also have to dilute it, did you dilute it 1 to 2 parts water?
The second time I did.
Probably.
First time I just shot it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Fine.
So if you dilute it with water, it's like cough syrup. So you're expecting OJ and you get cough syrup. Yeah, you're going to be a little bit shocked, but it's really not that bad. Our next drink, we found that people were taking 1/6 of a serving. Like literally, we had this $30 drink, and people were taking 1/6 because it was so expensive, but then still having benefit. What we decided to do is take that 1/6, put it in a 12-ounce bottle, mix it with some ketone salts because there's some benefits to that as well. And that version is nearly flavorless. So we're working on, heading in that direction. But if you dilute it 1 or 2 parts, it shouldn't be that bad. And some people actually say that they like it, believe it or not. And I tell them not to say that publicly because I want to manage expectations. But they actually, maybe it's they associate the flavor with it doing something, and then there's a circular loop where they actually like it. Yeah.
I was going to say it's definitely like there's a lot of things that I've taken over the years where it initially was just very just not fun. to consume, but then I started relating it to the actual experience thereafter. And we're not talking about illegal drugs or anything, but supplements
like apple cider vinegar or ginger shots are two things that people tend to take that are healthy. One thing we really need to touch upon, I mentioned steroids. So for your audience, the number one question might be, is this legal or will this one day become banned? So can we jump into that?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So WADA, World Anti-Doping Association, already has commented on a few articles saying that this is not even on their watch list. So first of all, it's not even on their watch list. Second of all, how would you test for something if you can it would be in your system naturally after a 5-day fast. If you just don't eat for a few days and you want to raise your ketones to 5, 6, 7, you just not eat and it would be the same fuel source. Now it's a little bit different how you perform with esters at 5 or 6 versus fasting. We don't have time to go into that. But the second thing is they don't ban things that work. They only ban things that are unhealthy. And people have that disconnect there. They think, oh, well, if it gives you a performance gain, they're going to ban it. Well, if red beet juice came out and was proven to increase performance by 5%, are they suddenly going to say, everyone, put down your beets? Like, no. So, actually, this is actually a health-based drink. It mimics longevity, which is all health-based. So it's a healthy drink that people can drink on a daily basis. So we don't think that it's going to be banned. We do think that every single athlete, that's not an exaggeration, we think that every single athlete will have to incorporate this as much as they incorporate sugar right now into their diet. It's just a second, completely different pathway fuel source to glucose. So you could run just on glucose, or you can run on glucose and ketones on top of that. And once the word gets out in the bodybuilding community, for example, everyone thinks of exogenous ketones as an endurance drink. Tour de France, there's an epic video on my website about this whistleblower, talks about this guy dropping a bottle, Team Sky dropping a bottle on the side of the road. And oh my God, they freaked out for 5 miles. And then he finds out that, that was a $5,000 bottle. And that's why they were freaking out. And then we give him the drink 2 years later, Greg Henderson, and he's recording 10% higher watts on his bike. And he's like, the meter doesn't lie. I've been doing this for 10 years. I just can't go up 10. This is crazy. But more crazy than that was the recovery. And recovery just isn't as sexy. But the next morning, his HRV reading, his recovery meter said that he had taken the day off the day before. And he just scratching his head like, oh my God, I can do a hard workout every day? Like, what does that do for performance? That's where it just skyrockets. So we do think it's going to be the default drink, bigger than, when creatine hit the market.
I remember
just
that.
a default drink for every single sport, except maybe a sprinter, because sprinting is, glucose based. He might not need it right before a sprint, but he'll need it for recovery. He'll need it for his workouts. He'll need it for, throughout the week. So we think this is the next frontier, the big, the big sport nutrition, of the decade, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. How cool, man. Well, there's a lot for people to think about here. And I hope, people start considering it as something that they need to have at least on their radar moving forward.
And
right?
I think that it's the misconception also is that it's expensive. So it is $30 for one of those bottles. But again, people are drinking $5 worth. And if you're low carb, some people are dropping down to, $2.50 worth, which is less than a Starbucks latte.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Good point. So if people want to find out more about this, Frank, or maybe get in touch with you, they have questions about all of this, because obviously, you put the time in and know what you're talking about. Where do you send them?
You can email me, frank@ketoneaid.com. Also, our website, ketoneaid.com, has a lot of videos on there from elite athletes that were unpaid. Now, a lot of those videos are from high doses. I don't want you to think I'm misleading you, because that was 2 years ago when they were taking massive amounts. We're now compiling more videos of people taking the smaller amounts. And that content is mostly on Instagram, where people are updating every single day, what they're using. So Instagram is where we post our more recent stuff, but we have some archived stuff on our website, ketoneaid.com.
Awesome. Man, Frank, thanks for coming on. This is a lot of fun. Maybe we can get you back on in 6 to 12 and get a little update from you too.
Sounds good. Great. Thank you.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Frank LLosa. Hey, fitness fans, don't leave yet. It's your host, Eric Malzone, and I have a quick favor to ask. Actually, 3 favors. So, number 1, if you're a fan of our show, I ask you to do something that takes under 3 minutes. Go to iTunes, please, and subscribe to our show. Please, please, please. It means so much to us. It's so important. And then give us a favorable review. We would really, really appreciate it. And I can't tell you how much it means and helps us out. So I know it takes 2 minutes of your day, and it means a lot to us. So please do that. Number 2, go to our YouTube channel, our Fitness Marketing Alliance, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel there. Number 3, if you like this episode or any of the episodes that we've released, share it on social. That's huge. That's a big deal for us. And we put a lot of work into these episodes, trying to give you great, actionable content for the fitness industry. So that would mean a lot. And that's it. So we have some big plans coming up for this show. I'll be talking about that in the next couple episodes. But thank you so much for listening. It means so much. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I love to hear from everybody. Eric, ERIC, at fitnessmarketingalliance.com.